In a small, unassuming town nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there was a woman named Clara. Clara was known for her quiet demeanor, her penchant for solitude, and her love for books that transported her to faraway lands. She lived in a modest cottage on the outskirts, surrounded by a garden that she tended with care. To the casual observer, she was just another face in the crowd, a woman who blended into the background of everyday life. But beneath her unremarkable exterior lay a spirit forged in resilience, a mind sharp as a blade, and a secret that could turn the tides of any confrontation. Clara had always preferred the company of her books to that of people. They were her escape, her solace, and in many ways, her greatest friends. She would spend hours lost in tales of adventure and heroism, often imagining herself as the protagonist, overcoming insurmountable odds. Yet, as much as she cherished her solitude, she was not blind to the world around her. The town, with its quaint charm, had its share of troubles. Rumors of petty crime and mischief circulated like wildfire, and as the days turned into weeks, a sense of unease settled over the community. It began with small incidents: bicycles disappearing from front yards, garden gnomes mysteriously relocated, and the occasional broken window. But as the summer wore on, the crimes escalated. A group of local troublemakers, emboldened by the lack of consequences, began to target individuals they deemed easy prey. Clara, with her quiet life and unassuming presence, caught their attention. They saw her as a target ripe for the picking, someone who would not put up a fight, someone they could intimidate without fear of retaliation. One balmy evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the sky turned a deep shade of indigo, Clara found herself at home, curled up in her favorite armchair, a novel resting on her lap. The peace of the moment was abruptly shattered by a loud crash outside. Startled, Clara's heart raced as she set her book aside and approached the window. Peering through the curtain, she saw shadows moving in her garden. A group of 3 young men, their laughter echoing in the stillness, were rummaging through her flowers, uprooting her carefully tended plants. Fear gripped her, but it was quickly replaced by a surge of anger. How dare they invade her space, disrupt her sanctuary? She felt a familiar sensation rising within her, the fire of determination that had always driven her to stand up against injustice, even when it seemed insurmountable. Clara had a secret, one that she had kept hidden from the world, an ability that had been passed down through generations of women in her family. It was a skill she had honed in isolation, a connection to the forces of nature that could be harnessed in times of need. With a deep breath, Clara focused her energy, feeling the pulse of the earth beneath her feet. She closed her eyes and summoned the strength that lay dormant within her. The air around her shifted, charged with an electric energy that seemed to vibrate through the very walls of her home. She had always been cautious about using her abilities, aware of the fine line between protection and vengeance. But tonight, she felt a sense of purpose. As the intruders continued their raucous antics, Clara stepped outside, her heart steadying with each step. The men turned, their laughter fading as they took in the sight of her standing there, a figure of calm amidst the chaos. They were taken aback, momentarily frozen by her unexpected appearance. Clara's voice rang out, steady and unwavering, cutting through the tension like a knife. "What do you think you're doing?" The bravado of the young men faltered, their confidence wavering as they exchanged uncertain glances. They had expected an easy target, someone who would cower and retreat. Instead, they found themselves confronted by a woman who radiated strength and determination. One of the men, a tall figure with a cocky smirk, stepped forward, trying to regain control of the situation. "We were just having some fun, lady. No harm done." Clara's eyes narrowed, her resolve hardening. "This is my home. You have no right to be here. Leave now." The words slipped from her lips with an authority that surprised even her. It was as though the very earth beneath her feet was amplifying her voice, infusing it with power. For a moment, the men hesitated, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. It was clear they hadn't anticipated any resistance. But then, fueled by a mixture of bravado and arrogance, they laughed again, dismissing her warning. "Or what? You'll call the cops? You think we're scared of you?" In that instant, Clara knew she had to act. The energy within her surged, and she reached deep into the connection she had with the natural world. The air thickened, and the wind began to swirl around her, rustling the leaves of the trees and carrying a whisper of her intent. The men's laughter turned to confusion as the atmosphere shifted, the playful breeze transforming into something more ominous. Suddenly, a gust of wind swept through the garden, sending debris flying and causing the intruders to stumble back, their bravado evaporating in the face of the unexpected storm. Clara stood firm, her feet planted on the ground, channeling the power of nature itself. "I won't ask you again. Leave my garden and never return." The men exchanged frantic glances, their bravado crumbling as they realized they were no match for the force they had underestimated. One of them, a wiry figure with panic in his eyes, turned and bolted, sprinting toward the edge of the garden. The others quickly followed suit, fear driving them away from the woman they had thought would be an easy target. As they fled, Clara felt the energy dissipate, the wind calming to a gentle breeze. She took a deep breath, her heart racing from the adrenaline of the confrontation. The garden, once a place of tranquility, now bore the marks of the disturbance, but Clara felt a sense of triumph wash over her. She had defended her home, her sanctuary, and in doing so, she had awakened something within herself, a power she had long kept hidden. In the days that followed, word spread through the town about the confrontation in Clara's garden. The story morphed into a local legend, with each retelling amplifying the details. Clara, the quiet bookworm, had stood up to a gang of troublemakers and sent them running. People began to see her in a new light, their perceptions shifting from that of a timid woman to a fierce protector of her domain. But Clara knew she had to remain vigilant. The attackers might have been frightened, but she understood the nature of fear. It could breed resentment and retaliation. She fortified her home, not just with physical barriers, but with her newfound resolve. She began to practice her abilities more, learning to control the forces she could summon, honing her skills until she felt confident in her capacity to protect herself and her garden. As the summer faded into autumn, Clara's life took on a new rhythm. She became more involved in the community, forging connections with her neighbors. They were curious about her, drawn to the enigmatic woman who had faced down danger with unwavering courage. Clara shared her love of literature, hosting book clubs and discussions, slowly building a network of friends who admired her strength and resilience. But she remained cautious, aware that the troublemakers had not disappeared entirely. One evening, as she was watering her garden, she noticed a figure lurking at the edge of the trees. It was the tall man who had confronted her that night, his expression dark and filled with malice. Clara's heart raced, but instead of fear, she felt a surge of defiance. She had faced him once. She could do it again. "Why are you here?" she called out, her voice steady. He stepped forward, a menacing grin spreading across his face. "You think you scared us off? You're just a freak. We're not done with you yet." Clara felt the familiar energy rise within her, but this time she tempered it with calm. "You don't need to do this. You can walk away now, and I won't tell anyone." His laughter echoed through the trees, a sound devoid of humor. "You think you can intimidate me? You're just a woman playing with the wind. You don't scare me." In that moment, Clara realized that she had to show him the truth of her power. She took a deep breath, centering herself, and called upon the elements around her. The wind picked up, swirling with intensity as she focused her energy. The trees began to sway, their branches bending as if responding to her command. The air crackled with tension, and the man's bravado faltered, replaced by uncertainty. "What are you doing?" he stammered, his confidence wavering. Clara stepped forward, her presence commanding as she channeled the energy of the earth. "You've underestimated me for the last time. Leave now or face the consequences." The wind howled, and for a moment it felt as though the very ground beneath them trembled in response to her words. The man's bravado crumbled entirely, and he turned on his heel, sprinting back into the shadows from whence he came. Clara stood still, the energy dissipating as she watched him flee. She felt a rush of exhilaration. She had not only defended her home, but had also reclaimed her strength in the face of adversity. As the days turned into weeks, the town began to change. Clara's story had inspired others, emboldening them to stand up against bullies and protect their own. The troublemakers who had once roamed freely found themselves isolated, their attempts at intimidation thwarted by a community that had rallied around Clara's strength. The garden flourished under her care, a symbol of resilience and growth, much like Clara herself. In the quiet moments, as she tended to her flowers and watched the seasons change, Clara reflected on her journey. She had discovered not only her own power, but the strength that lay within her community. She had transformed from a woman who sought refuge in the pages of books to a fierce protector of her home and her neighbors. The quiet town, once filled with whispers of fear, now thrummed with a sense of unity and strength. Clara understood that her secret was not just the abilities she possessed, but the courage to embrace her true self. She had faced down those who thought her an easy target and emerged not just unscathed, but empowered. And as the sun set over her garden, casting a warm glow over the blooms, Clara knew that she would always stand ready to defend what was hers, with the spirit of the earth at her side.